Unholy Death Knight explained right off the bat. Of course, we're going to be in the mulligan. Hawkstrider Rancher is actually no longer a keep in Unholy Death Knight. We can do a little bit better. Skeletal Sidekick we are going to keep here. It's not the best, but a 1-drop can be important. Up against Death Knight here could be a mirror match. It could also be a Frost Death Knight. Lots of Frost Death Knights out there right now. And we want to get the foul leg down on turn 1. We can actually give it some attack next turn if we want to, or we could just go ahead and get down the battlefield Necromancer. We're going to see what our opponent does here. But foul leg is probably the best turn 1 play that we could have. We see the Body Bagger come down here, and it's buffed. So the Peasant is actually a really good pickup, so we're actually going to be able to buff our egg, and then we are going to trade into this guy. This is actually a really dangerous minion because it's just continuously allowing our opponent to be able to have more attack. And we're going to go ahead and get the Peasant down. We're also relieved that our opponent has used the coin. It looks like they kept these 2 cards. Construct Quarter is likely one of those cards, otherwise they have severely made a bad play. We hit a Hawkstrider Rancher here, but we really want to be careful about how we're approaching this turn. And I think we want to play the Nerubian Vizier and get the discounted spell here. We can double trade. It would leave us a 3-3, and then they would have these 2 guys. But they would just have a lot of ways to be able to remove this, and we might be able to save this for a later turn and combo it with like a Nerubian Swarm Guard or maybe some 1-drops. So I think the better play here is, unfortunately, we're going to have to make some trades that we don't really want to make. And then we're going to go ahead and Vizier, and we're going to get a cheap spell in our hand here. And I think we actually want the Horn of Winter to be able to get down the battlefield Necromancer. Seems like that's going to be a pretty good play for us to be able to make in this situation. It's going to give us an additional body on the board, and it's going to potentially help us protect the stuff that we already have in play. Next turn, it's going to depend on our top deck, but maybe we're just throwing down the Hawkstrider Rancher, and hopefully it would be a 1-drop, or maybe, you know, we hit something a little bit better than that. Our opponent's playing their own copy of the Vizier. Situations like this kind of concern me about where we are in the game. They hit some removal for our Necromancer, so that's good for them. And this list, I believe this is looking like it's Unholy against Unholy, so a pretty similar matchup here. What concerns me is that our opponent has cards in hand and we don't. Strongest play here, I think, is just going to be to spend mana, so we're going to go ahead and get down the 4-4. And I think we can take... Let's see. I think we're going to take the Howling Blast. We could take some card draw. Card draws may be actually a little bit better in this situation. The Howling Blast would just be like removal and a little bit of damage, but it feels like we're so low on cards that we're going to need that card draw. And then we're going to make trades in this manner. Next turn, potentially Rancher and Noggling to be able to draw more cards. Maybe we can hit a second 1-drop. And again, we'll see what comes off the top. There could be things that might actually be better for us to be able to play. But I always like to have a tentative plan, so then that way when the top deck comes, we can quickly compare what we were thinking about doing with what our new option is. Our opponent's able to get down their own Rancher. We're likely going to want to kill this, which fortunately we can. And starting to infuse this for card draw is going to be good as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get down my own Rancher, and then we're going to get down this Defrost. And again, hoping for a 1-drop. And we actually get one, so we're going to go ahead and get down our 1-drop. And then we're going to make sure that we kill their Rancher, and then we're going to push another damage face. So starting to feel a little bit better about the position that we're in here. We have board. We have 2 cards in hand. This is potentially going to be more cards. And so things are feeling pretty okay right now just because we have initiative in the game. We're ahead on tempo. And we're really just waiting to see what our opponent does here. They actually have the second Rancher, but they're not going to be able to make use of it this turn. And ideally, we're going to want to remove this Hawkstrider Rancher as well. So again, we're going to see what the top deck is. We hit Plague Strike. This makes it really easy to be able to remove the 2-5, which is exactly what we want to do. Drawing cards is a pretty compelling option, but this is just a little bit too dangerous if they had something like a Nerubian Swarm Guard here. So we are going to... But we're going to go ahead and discover our spell first, because this spell might change what we want to do. We can take the Grave Strength here. It's actually going to be cheaper. We could take some removal. Blood Tap is really going to be worthless. So it comes down to these two guys. Both of them are going to cost 2 mana. Are we going to need this removal, or would we rather have the Grave Strength? I think the cheap Grave Strength is going to be the option that we're going to take here. So I'm going to bump like this, and then we're going to go ahead and Plague Strike on this guy. And then we can actually... I think we're just going to go ahead and get rid of this Death Rattle. And I'm going to go ahead and make this trade. Again, I'm value trading here, trying to maximize our ability to have a really wide board, to take advantage of the Grave Strength, and to prevent our opponent from having a board, again, because we know that they're going to be playing Grave Strength as well. And likely we are going to make the same play that they made, whereas we just want to draw cards here. Can't really combo this with anything this turn, but that could be good next turn. So we're going to go ahead and draw some cards. Hopefully we hit something playable. And we hit a Foul Egg and an Arms Dealer. So the question is, do we want to save these to combo with the Hawkstrider Rancher for next turn? The other issue that we have to worry about is Lord Marrowgar. This could be a game where the person that has Lord Marrowgar actually just wins, which would be bad. So we're going to, again, value trade. And I think we actually just want to go ahead and get our minions on the board. And, of course, we want to play the Arms Dealer first, so that we can buff the egg. Now it has some attack. And then we're going to pass it back to our opponent. So next turn we have this combo to be able to take advantage of the Rancher. But we want to stay as wide as possible. Potentially we might be able to find a way to be able to lethal with the Grave Strength. We have our 5 corpses, so we know we're going to be able to get that +3 on every minion. Unless they have an additional Plague Strike or some other type of removal, we could expect to possibly have as many as 4 minions, but it looks like created by Frostworm's Fury. That's really good for our opponent to be able to freeze out the board. And so we're just going to go ahead and get down the Hawkstrider and the School Teacher. And I think we can actually just take the Howling Blast here. Another option would be to take the Graveyard Shift. And then there's also the Glacial Advance. We want our board to be as wide as possible for next turn because of the Grave Strength, and we're really just hoping that our opponent doesn't have a Lord Marrowgar, because they're going to be able to get some serious removal onto the board. These will trade for 2, plus the Marrowgar. And this is actually really close. This gives us the widest possible board. And a little bit of board resilience as well. I'm going to take the Howling Blast, though. And then we're going to lock down our opponent's 5/5. Important to keep in mind that so many of our minions that we have on the board also have a Death Rattle. This spawns a 1/1, a 1/1, 1/1s. This is a 1/1 and a 3/3. So even if our opponent has the Lord Marrowgar here and makes a lot of trades, it's possible that we still have lethal with the Grave Strength. And we see that they don't have the Lord Marrowgar. And anything else that they kill here is actually going to leave additional stuff on the board. They could still potentially hero power to be able to remove the 1/1 here. So at this point, I want to start doing some math to find out whether or not we could have lethal with what we have on the board. That would be 6, 10, plus 12, plus the hero power actually would be lethal for us next turn. I believe we have access to 26, even if this is removed. And so we're going to check the math again, but it looks like this is actually going to be a win here again with the Grave Strength coming down. So we have 6, 10, 12, 13, plus another 3, 17 plus 10. So we can see that this is actually going to be lethal. and it is going to be the 26 that we originally counted. We're going to go face and close this game out, and that's going to be another win. You can see this deck performing really well. That's going to push me to 24-4 from where I started at about rank 4,000 legend when I started climbing with this deck.